For the moment, however, Obo remained the RAF's most promising electronic bombing aid, and Harris turns his sights back to the Ruhr. Bad weather had prevented a follow-up raid on Essen on March 6th, but with good weather forecasted on March 12th, Harris chooses tonight to launch his follow-up attack on Essen with a maximum effort. At Linton-on-Ouse, Ron Reed desperately hopes for a night off after flying 5 bombing raids in 9 nights. Much to his chagrin, he is informed by his squadron leader that he's on for tonight.
Sorry blokes, we're on again tonight, maximum effort.
For John Searby, the news he is also flying tonight comes with an additional note. Guy Gibson, 106 Squadron's commander, is being posted away from the squadron. Searby, currently in command of one of the squadron's 2 flights, will succeed Gibson and take command of the whole squadron. Gibson himself is headed for RAF Scampton to take command of a new unit simply known as 617 Squadron. Across England, 457 crews file into the briefing huts to hear tonight's target. At Linton-on-Ouse, Ron Reed and the crews of 76 and 78 Squadron are briefed by 76 Squadron leader Leonard Chester. Reed is horrified when he hears the target.
Gentlemen, our target for tonight is Essen.
Clug. Our hearts dropped.
There it lay at the end of the red ribbon, delineating our route passing through the massed red hatched areas, indicating the heavy anti-aircraft defense and fighters of the Kamuba line.
The attack is planned as an almost exact copy of the March 5th attack on Essen. As with the previous raid, the bombers will be sent on the shortest and most direct route to Essen. 2 turning points are plotted, one at the Dutch coast and the other north of Essen, which will be marked with white indicators dropped by Obo mosquitoes and backed up by 4-engine Pathfinder crews. 7 Obo-equipped mosquitoes will be tasked with marking the Krupp's works. Spread throughout the raid, they will drop red indicators every 3 to 6 minutes, beginning at 21:15 hours. 16 Pathfinder crews flying 4-engine bombers will remark the red indicators with their own green indicators every 1 to 2 minutes thereafter, to ensure continuous marking of the aiming point. If no red indicators are seen, the crews are to drop their own indicators on any burning green indicators they see. The 457 main force bombers will attack in 3 waves, with 88 Halifaxes of 4 and 6 groups attacking from 21:19 to 21:35 hours, 158 Wellingtons and 40 Sterlings from 1, 3, 4, and 6 groups attacking between 21:30 and 21:40 hours, and 140 Lancasters attacking from 21:35 to 21:55 hours. The bombers are to bomb on red indicators if visible, or at the concentration of green indicators if no reds are visible. Concurrently, 9 Sterlings of 3 group will lay sea mines off the Frisian Islands, and 4 Wellingtons and 3 Whitley bombers from 93 Training Group will release Leaflets over France. Filing out of the briefing, Ron Reed and the other crews head for their pre-operational meal of eggs and bacon. His friend, Morty Mortensen, shares his dark sense of humor, observing,
The condemned man ate a hearty breakfast. We ignored him and chewed doggedly on. By now, the knot in my stomach was reaching the size of a hen's egg, and the bacon tasted like leather.
At RAF bases, pre-flight rituals are carried out, well-known jokes are told at the change houses, crews laughing at them as best they can. Loaded onto the truck, the crews head for their bombers to begin their pre-flight checks. And then green Very lamp signals start up, the bombers roll down the perimeter track for the runway.
The green lamp from the runway control van cleared us for takeoff, giving a quick wave to those lucky people assembled inside the control van to see us off. I opened the throttles, and we were away. Sluggishly and slowly, the Halifax came to life. Then, wheels up and off on the long, slow, bomb-laden climb that would not stop until we were somewhere over Holland.
Crossing the Dutch coast, the bombers encounter clear skies from the North Sea all the way to Essen. The quarter moon sits high above the horizon, casting a reflective glow on the bombers and the ground below them. The coastal flak and searchlights find no victims among the inbound bombers as the bomber stream passes over the coastal positions. Just as on March 5th, the German night defenses react slowly to the incursion, and the bomber stream is well inland before the first combats occur. A Sterling of 15 squadron is engaged by a night fighter near S. Hertha Hombos, which opens fire from 600 meters and closes to 200 meters. The rear gunner, Sergeant Peters, returns fire, causing the fighter to catch fire and explode, killing the crew. However, 6 RAF bombers are shot down while heading to Essen by night fighters. Among them are 2 Halifaxes from the first wave shot down by night fighter ace Manfred Moira. Ron Reed is flying in the first wave and sees the telltale signs of combat in the skies around him.
There were 1 or 2 bursts of air-to-air firing close to us, indicating fighters in action. We redoubled our lookout. Now well into the heavily defended areas of the Kammhuber line, the intensity of the flak was increasing. Just ahead of us was the Ruhr, and there it was, already an inferno of brilliant explosions, which appeared to fill the sky. Christ, it's worse than last time.
Arriving over Essen, the bombers find a clear sky but thick ground haze. The first red indicators fall on the aiming point at 21:15 hours, and the second 5 minutes later. They are rapidly followed by a number of green indicators which land close to the red indicators. As the main force bombers arrive, they encounter extremely intense flak and searchlight activity. The Halifaxes of the first wave fly into a veritable wall of flak and searchlights.
The flak was heavier than ever on the run-up. We were bounced around by the bursting shells below, and the stink of cordite from those bursting in front filled the cockpit. I clung onto the control to try to keep things level for old Harry, peering down through his bomb sight. Shrapnel rattled against the fuselage. I could see the marker flares ahead quite clearly, and so could Harry, as I opened the bomb doors and told him we were all his. "Okay, Skip, I've got the markers in line. Steady, hold it at that." Just as he said it, we got a roaring bang under the tail that pushed the nose down and way off to the left. "Right, come right, you're a long way off. Come around about 10 degrees right, quick," called Harry. I stopped on the rudders and swung us around. We were still a bit off to the left. The marker flares had disappeared under the nose, but there were plenty to see. Some aircraft had already dropped their loads and fires were lighting up the ground. Among them, I could see the flashes of HE bombs exploding. "Okay, Skip, it's coming up now. Steady, steady, steady." I thought he'd never stop saying steady. Essen was at its worst. We were still bouncing around from the flak, and I was sure Harry was overshooting. "Come on, Harry, for Christ's sake, how much further?" Harry was not to be hurried, and I shouldn't have been impatient, but... "Just a little more left, a little. Steady, steady." Just as I reached the bursting point. "Bomb's gone," he called.
From 21:15 to 21:30 hours, the bombing is concentrated on the Krupp's works in the area west and northwest of the aiming point. 8 of the 17 bomb photos taken by 4 Group, which identify ground detail, show the Krupp's works itself, attesting to the accurate marking by the oboe mosquitoes. Several large explosions occur as gas works and combustible facilities are struck. However, beginning at 21:30 hours, the bombing begins to fall short to the north and northeast of the aiming point. German decoy indicators again make an appearance, causing many of the Sterling and Wellington crews to drop their bombs miles north of the aiming point. However, accuracy improves with the arrival of the third wave Lancasters, who are not drawn in by the decoys. John Searby, flying amongst the final wave, was struck by the intensity of the flak, which made it a
perfect hell of a night.
Unlike previous raids, the flak defenses seem to increase in effectiveness as the Lancasters arrive, and 4 Lancasters fall in flames over Essen. Nevertheless, the bombing remains concentrated, and 2/3 of the bombs fall on Essen this night. As the bombers leave the target area, Essen burns even more ferociously than it had during the previous raid 1 week earlier. Turning for home, the bombers run the gauntlet of night fighter positions and reinforced flak positions. Banking for home, Ron Reed is horrified by what he sees to his right.
I started a full turn right away. Just as I did, I saw sparks going forward over my turning starboard wing. Now, there were always sparks flying back from the engine exhaust when the engines were at full power, but these sparks were going forwards. Christ, they weren't sparks, they were tracer bullets. We had a fighter, which none of us had seen. I pushed the aircraft down into the flak-filled sky below and hoped for the best. Fortunately, the fighter either lost me or decided on discretion in not being shot down by his own flak.
Several more Lancasters follow the flak flying out of the Ruhr, while the cloudless sky and half-moon facilitates interceptions by night fighters who can visually pick up the bombers at longer range. The team of Oberleutnant von Bonin and K. Joden, flying in Box Gemse, are guided by radar ground control to a 76 Squadron Halifax.
I immediately went to attack from below and behind and fired from about 80 meters range. The 4 ancient enemy machine immediately burned brightly from the fuselage and the wing roots, but flew onwards. I therefore attacked again from the port side and let the burning aircraft fly through my fire from about 100 meters. The aircraft went down vertically immediately thereafter. I observed the crash at 2140.
Manfred Maurer continues his killing streak, shooting down a Wellington for his 22nd victory and his 4th of the night. 5 more bombers fall to other night fighters as they fly through the German night fighter boxes between themselves and England. German coastal flags shoot down 2 Wellingtons into the sea before the bombers are out of reach of the German defenses. A Lancaster over Essen is hit by flak and blows up. The bomb aimer, Flight Sergeant Neil Lindsay, is blasted straight through the Perspex nose of the Lancaster by the explosion. Regaining consciousness, the dazed Sergeant Lindsay finds himself plunging towards the burning city below and quickly pulls the ripcord on his parachute. Sitting below the white canopy, he observes the spectacle. The noise of the passing aircraft, the sharp blasts and staccato of flak bursts, the searchlights weaving through the sky. 3 searchlights suddenly cone him as he drifts down, holding him in their beams of light as some ground defense guns begin to take pot shots at him. Too weak to try to slip his parachute to get away or out of range, Lindsay hangs limply in his harness, playing dead. Hitting the ground between 2 burning buildings, Lindsay undoes his parachute and lays on the ground, wondering what to do. Suddenly, 2 figures emerge from the smoke and flames. Slave laborers, forced by the Germans to produce war material at the Krupp's works. Using broken French to communicate, the slave laborers tell Lindsay they're willing to hide him and try to help him escape. But Lindsay is too badly hurt, and reluctantly, the slave laborers inform the nearby flak battery of his location so he can be taken to a hospital. For you, the war is over, Lindsay is told by the German officer who arrives to take him away. After spending the night on a floor in a hallway, Lindsay is taken to a military hospital. The sole survivor of Lancaster R5749 of 106 Squadron, Lindsay will spend the rest of the war in Stalag Luft 3 as a prisoner of war. Essen has again been devastated. Photo reconnaissance pictures taken shortly afterwards shows almost 50% more damage has been done to the Krupp's works than in the March 5th raid, some 196,000 square yards of the facility being devastated. The Krupp's locomotive works, one of the largest train works in Europe, suffers particularly with 96% of the facility damaged or destroyed. Other industrial facilities in Essen are hit, as well as the railway facilities, rolling stocks, and residential and commercial dwellings. The mine laying mission also goes well, with 9 Sterlings from 3 Group laying 50 mines off the Frisian Islands. RAF analysis of the raid shows 457 aircraft dispatched, 43 turning back for mostly technical reasons, and 384 claimed to have bombed the primary target. Of that, bombing photos suggest 58% put their ordnance within 3 miles of the aiming point. Once again, the operational research scientists determined the presence of German decoy indicators based off crew reports. All bombers employed on mine laying and leaflet sorties returned to base safely, However, 23 bombers failed to return from the attack on Essen, some 5% of the force dispatched, and the upper limit of what Bomber Command believes it can sustain without its squadrons losing combat effectiveness. 12 bombers fall to night fighters tonight, in comparison to the 9 bombers shot down by fighters on March 5th. 11 bombers fall to flak, compared with 5 bombers lost to flak on March 5th. Bomber Command, using crew reports and radio intercepts, estimates 10 losses to fighters and 10 losses to flak, with the remaining 3 bombers being lost to unknown causes. The presence of an almost half-full moon and no cloud cover also assisted night fighters in finding and destroying RAF bombers, despite more than half of the intercepted German radio communications being unintelligible because of tinsel jamming. Despite the raids into southern Germany the past few nights, it's clear the defenses in the Ruhr have been reinforced since the March 5th attack. In particular, the number of flak batteries and searchlight batteries have been heavily strengthened, accounting for a doubling of losses to flak this night. It remains to be seen whether the higher losses tonight are in fact a harbinger of things to come. Joseph Goebbels receives news of the raid as it occurs.
In the course of the evening news comes another heavy air raid on Essen. This time the Krupp factories are hit hardest. I am still on the phone with the deputy Gauleiter Schlesman, who gives me a less than encouraging report. In the Kruppwerk area alone, there are about 25 major fires. The air war is currently our greatest concern. No sooner are we relieved of the worry about the Eastern Front than this new one comes along, which burdens us even more directly than that of last winter. But we must now devote all our energies to achieving a tangible result in the air war. Things cannot go on like this. The Fuhrer has told Göring his opinion in no uncertain terms. One must therefore now expect that Göring will do something decisive.